Welcome back, Arcadians. Alex here with another video. I'm delighted to present the Arcade Archive, which is basically going to be my new channel name to coincide with the museum I've now set up, which is in the heart of the Cotswolds in Stroud, just below Neil's RMC Computing Museum.
Yeah.
With my partner in crime here, Richard.
Yeah, we're in a beautiful 300-year-old woolen mill in the heart of the Cotswolds. We've been setting up this museum for a number of months now. Still got a long way to go. But yeah, you're at the point now where we selected a name for the channel.
Yeah.
That took quite a bit of work.
So what, 60 names we were trying to pull out of a hat?
Yeah, it took a lot of effort to get that working, get the name right. But we think it's captured what we want to do with the museum, really.
Yeah,
what you're trying to bring.
Arcade Archive really represents what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, archiving a lot of the classic arcade era. And that's not just machines, it's PCBs, manuals, everything to do with the classic.
Controls, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And really giving people the experience, the hands-on experience that they can come here and take, you know, a journey through that timeline of the early 70s, maybe even before then, all the way through to the 80s, maybe up to a little bit of the late 80s, might even creep into some of the 90s later on, but it's going to be an interesting journey for people.
It is, and we've got a lot of games in here that are pioneering games. I mean, you're standing in front of a few real gems here that obviously need a lot of work, but these are all videos for future
parts of the channel, isn't it? Yeah, that's
part
right.
of the channel. We're going to restore a lot of these games, and obviously when you guys come down here, these are the games that you're going to be playing. It's not going to be a stuffy museum. This is going to be a hands-on experience where I can take you around all of the machines and teach you a little bit about the history of the games, because a lot of these games have got so much history because they were pioneering, weren't they, for
Absolutely.
their time?
And you've been in the hobby for what, 12 years now?
Yeah.
So you know a lot of it. You've had a lot of experience with the community. You've picked up cabs, you've restored cabs, you've done all sorts of parts of the journey that's taken you to this point. We've got a few things to look at today on some of the machines. We're going to look at what work needs to be done on some of them and give a little bit of taster of the sort of things you're likely to see when you come down to the museum. Yeah.
And also we've had a lot of support from the community. So a lot of these machines in here are on loans. The community has really stepped forward helping us out with a lot of these machines. And guys, some of you have asked whether you could help out, and you're more than welcome to. And I've now set up a Patreon if you would like to support us, or just come down, buy a ticket, come down and visit us. That's what we want to see, isn't it? People in here. But Patreon is now available in the link below.
Yeah, that'll enable you to be here more time, get more of the machines set up and present on the day, and actually go through the machines and the history and the journey of the various machines.
Because I'll be here the whole time when you guys come down, so we can thrash out some high scores together. But for today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at all the games that we've got so far. So should we start in the other room on the very early pioneering game?
I think that's a very good place to start.
So guys, not only is this the entrance where I'll be welcoming you into the museum, this is also going to be the set for my YouTube channel, for all my future videos. It's an amazing space. It's not quite finished yet. I've still got to put a resin on that wall, and we've got to put the resin on the floor, but you get a great feel for the space here, don't we, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Been doing quite a bit of work here. We've got the doors in and the panelling, and that's all been set up this last few weeks. We've got the air conditioning in, which is actually running. It's quite quiet, so that's quite nice.
It feels really warm in here now, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
and this is the wall that you've built, which is for storage.
It is for storage. You've got a little bit of space
in
here. Okay.
You left him in there. Shame away. Skeleton in the closet.
So yeah, you're planning on putting some artwork on here?
Yeah, I might do the marquee lights that I've done in my arcade, might put them across the top, and we'll probably have Arcade Archive either stenciled into this lovely cladded wood, or we might even have an Arcade Archive neon we're thinking of doing. So,
and then you've got the two side pods. What are you going to do with those?
Well, hopefully you're going to have an arcade machine either side of this wall, which will look amazing.
That'd be really nice.
Maybe some pioneering games like Pong or even Sheriff would look quite good against this wooden panelling.
Definitely, very good,
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we're going to do now, we're going to have a look at Gunfight here. It's a very early Sega Gunfight. This is where it all starts for me, really. It's not a video game, it's an electrical mechanical game.
Yeah, absolutely. So the start of the journey, really, when people come in, is what they're going to see.
Yeah, let's have a look. It's not only a pioneering game, but it's an inspirational game for a lot of other video games that you're about to see in the museum.
Yeah, so it's the early start of the arcade, really, before things turn to video screens. This is electromechanical, so we've got a lot of relays, a lot of all sorts of mechanical components. And quite a bit to look at. We've not actually opened it up yet, have we?
No,
so we don't know what condition it's in, which is going to be interesting, but there's going to be some work to do there to get it up and running. Yeah,
we're going to have to drill the locks out, have a look inside and just see what condition it's in.
Have you ever seen one of these running?
I've never seen one running. I've seen it on YouTube, but I've never seen it, but it looks a hell of a lot of fun.
It does, it does. Yeah. You've got the little gunfighters. I like the cactuses. If you shoot those, they fall over.
Yeah.
So, and there's even little scrubs and things. I mean, that's been in there since what, 1969, 1970?
1970,
It's amazing.
And it all lights up. You've got a little scoreboard along the playing field there that shows you know, your score. It looks great. I can't wait to get that working.
I think it's going to be a real magic one because it starts the whole journey from where that was entertainment, and I'm sure it's pretty still fun, good fun today as well, all the way through into how that transition.
They must have been thinking, what do we make a video game? How do we, what sort of gameplay? And they just took all the inspiration from this electrical mechanical game.
I guess it's sort of pinball style. It's got a similar shape to a pinball table, so they were probably thinking, how do we evolve pinball or something into some of the technology we've got in there? I guess the idea of having a gunfight with two players is actually really exciting for the day.
Very violent game. In fact, I think it's the first game it's noted for being the first game to have violence in.
Okay, has it got sound effects?
Yes, it's got sound effects.
That's good. So that's going to be interesting to find out. Okay, so looking forward to getting stuck into that one and restoring it back.
Do you think that'll be the first one we start with, Richard? Or?
Well, we're certainly going to give it a go, see what needs, because there's going to be a lot of mechanical wipers and things that could be cleaned up quite easily. And if we can give the rudimentary electronics that are in there, the relays and things, just check everything, see if anything's shorted out or gone open circuit, we should be able to get to a point where we can confidently put some power onto it and see what works and what doesn't. But there's going to be a lot that doesn't work, and then that'll be some will be mechanical, some will be just rusted, some will be just touching.
Because I've noticed one of the guns doesn't work properly.
No, it's a bit floppy. So and then actually getting it working, I think that's probably a little bit more effort. But
and if there is something missing out of this game, we're not going to be able to get parts for this game. Would that be something that we could make?
Yeah, I think so. The plan with a lot of these machines and a lot of the restoration in the museum would be to try and sympathetically restore things, and where we need to build a new component part or replace a relay for something slightly more modern to keep it up and running, then that's fine. We need to make them safe. We need to make them accessible and usable for people. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things we can do, but yeah, we're not going to just start stripping things out, or painting things or whatever without a good reason for the restoration.
Well, the good thing about it is it's complete looking in.
Yeah.
It's on the inside. If we do have to replace it, you won't see it anyway.
No, that's right. If we need to do that. We might be able to 3D print some things, which is good. We might be able to mechanically make some other mechanisms and things to get everything up and running. So
fantastic.
Yeah, quite excited about that. So from Sega's Gunfight, which is the Electromechanical that you'll first see when you come into the museum, that's going to lead on to the rest of the museum. And the first thing we see next door is another gunfight, Alex.
Another gunfight, I know.
How did that come about? Why is there another gunfight?
Well, this gunfight, took inspiration from the electrical mechanical games. They didn't really know where they were going with video games back then.
Okay, yeah.
So they just took the idea of a gameplay.
So it's still got some mechanical parts. We've still got the two guns. They still move up and down. They're very much wiper-based, sort of semi-electromechanical, but it has got some electronics in. They're Space Invader style electronics, aren't they?
It is. It is the granddaddy of Space Invaders hardware, basically. Okay. It's the first game that had a CPU in it.
Right, yeah,
so
okay.
It's from a...
And that was Nutting, wasn't it? Was it Nutting that did that? Dave Nutting,
so not to be confused with Bill Nutting, who started up Nutting Associates.
Okay.
They were brothers.
Yeah, there's quite a complex story there, isn't it?
It's complex. It confused me for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is Dave Nutting's game.
Yeah.
So it's the first game with video game violence. It's the first game with a CPU.
Yeah, okay. And it's two-player again, which is like the original. And yeah, there's going to be some work to do on that one, I'm absolutely sure, because we don't know the condition of that machine's in. But again, because it's using electronics, because it's using a screen, if we can get that up and running, we can then see how machine's going to work. I'm sure it's going to be more electromechanical on the guns and things to get that one working.
But the actual hardware shouldn't be a problem, because
shouldn't be a problem. No, it's very basic hardware. I think some of these early machines, we've got a real advantage that they're straightforward, basic hardware. You can replace capacitors, transistors, a few of the standard parts, and you can get them up and running, and then work out what else isn't working. There's going to be always some RAM chips and things that are going to be down, but at least we can get it up and running, and you'll start to see something working. So
cosmetically, it looks okay, this game. It's just the guns, really, isn't it? The mechanical parts that we need to address.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the style of it, and it's very similar in the colour and the look and feel for another 1970s. Yeah, it goes well with the wood, doesn't it? So
Is there a general approach that you take to looking at these machines before you turn them on? Because someone like me would just get overexcited and go and plug it in straight away.
Yeah, I guess especially some of these really old machines, they're going to, with anything with a screen in, you've got a chance there that the screen's just going to go bang. Now, normally you're okay with the actual tube, it's not going to necessarily die on you if you do blow something up, but it's always worth giving it a look over. A lot of the time it's just clean them up. They've got a lot of gunk, a lot of goo on, sometimes the connectors are fallen off, and really they're just a bit caked in dust. So giving them a good clean. You don't need to polish the insides or anything. Don't wash them. I'm not a big fan of washing screens.
But a lot of people doing that.
Yeah, definitely get a good paintbrush in there, get all the dust out, make sure they're all discharged, obviously. That's the one rule with screens, make sure everything's safe
and
before you use it.
And it's just a process of elimination, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, Start from the power supply, make sure, disconnect everything. So disconnect your screens, disconnect the boards, start with that original power supply, make sure you're running on 110 or 240. That's going to be important because we've got some American machines here. We might even switch over some just to make it a little bit easier to run them here on the mill. And slowly work your way from the power supply to the board, to the regulation on the board. That's always really important. And that's where you're going to change capacitors and diodes and some voltage regulators and things, some big chunky ones back in the day. They were quite a few amps. Nowadays we don't tend to use such big chunky components. But once you've got that and you've got a stable 5 volts, a lot of this was 8-bit microcontrollers. It's where I started in the industry. So, it's brilliant for me because this is
you love this
stuff I can still see with my eyes that isn't as small as dust. So it's good to work on. The board's very easy to work on.
So it's nice to get the game working before we start on the restoration side, isn't it?
It is, At least you've got a feeling that you know what parts, we're going to have to buy some parts to get them restored. You may even have to source, some difficult RAM chips and that sort of thing on some of these boards. But then once you've given that a good going over, make sure the screen's working. You sometimes need to tune those screens in because they get a little bit out of focus and things. So once we've got to that point, then we can work on making it safe. So if we've decided that the power supply needs a little bit of attention, a lot of the times the wires, the main
try and keep
mains
some
wires.
of the old power supplies, or do you think,
yeah, because they all tend to last a long time. Most of these are linear power supplies. A lot of the machines don't like switch mode power supplies, and some of the modern electronics. We can go for toroidal power supplies and things like that in the future if we need to replace them. But wherever possible, the general principles are make everything safe, and make sure it's going to operate safely, and that's with temperature as well as regulation and voltage and all that sort of thing. Make sure you've got fuses in there and it hasn't just been shorted out or things like that. It's a lot of time.
When you haven't turned these machines on for a while, you solve one problem and another problem appears, and it might just be a process of time before you've got everything changed and it's up and running for a while.
That's it, absolutely. So some of the more rarer machines, I think things like Pong and stuff, they tend to get hot. So you don't necessarily want to leave them on for a long time.
Can you add fans to them? Is that something you would consider? To cool it down?
You can do, but a lot of it is really just giving them the ventilation, a bit of space. We talked earlier about making the machines spaced out a little bit more, which is good for the museum to see.
All of the
side art and everything, as well as giving them a bit of room to breathe. So and then sympathetic restoration. You can always do things like change the bumper strips and that sort of thing, touch up some of the paintwork, but really if it's got a great big scratch on it, that's where you sort of decide whether or not you leave it because that's authentic, or whether it's bad enough to justify putting new artwork or graphics on. So that'll be a call for you to make, really, to decide.
I mean, I've restored quite a few in the past, and I don't mind a bit of patina. It's obviously a social...
Cigarette burns,
as long as it's not destroying the artwork, there's nothing missing. I'd keep it. Like I noticed the Gunfighter's got a bit of veneer peeled off one side. We leave it. I'm not going to try and touch that up. We've got one good side. That's all that matters, really. So we've got a lovely example of a Midway Sea Wharf here, which was kindly donated or loaned to us by Adrian Purser. Don't know what's wrong with this. I know the board's faulty, but I think there's some mechanical parts in here as well that we're going to have to look at.
It's been strapped up, as we can see, but other than that, it's got a few squeaks on the mechanical side, on the periscope. I think you mentioned it's got, 5 mirrors at least in there? So there's a few things to probably clean and align and get that set up. It's got a few challenges to sort of get that up and running, I'm sure, with some of the electronics. So we'll just have to see what status it's in. Do you know if it's 110 or 240, that one? Is it American or?
I think that is American.
Okay,
yes.
So that's, again, we'll just make sure that's okay on the power supply side. I noticed it's got a little step, which is quite great.
Quite nice to put some new rubber on there, actually, because that's all worn away and looks a bit scruffy and dirty.
So that was to make sure you could get up to the periscope and have a seat.
To hang off, which we used to do back in the day.
And I do remember seeing that one actually at the pier. I don't know whether it's in Brighton or somewhere, but I do remember seeing it, and I probably did the same, hanging off of that when I was younger. So a lot of these early machines I do have memories of, but not necessarily playing them. I think playing them when you were a kid was messing around with them, wasn't it? Not necessarily putting money in. I remember
Sea Wharf, fond memories of that, and because it was very similar to Battlezone as well. It was quite an in thing for them to do the periscope.
Definitely, yes.
But really cool cabinet, and I don't know, has it got analog sound in there, or is it?
I think so. Yes. I think I've heard that.
Because there's little. What do you call them?
Potentiometers, little pots.
Potentiometers for pots for all the different tuning.
Yeah, that's right.
So you can tune in the sonar and all the different sound effects.
It's going to be interesting because, again, people's memories of a lot of these machines are going to be based on what they heard and how that was tuned, and that might have been slightly different based on each one. So, and then next to it we've got what, the GB. So
the Namco GB. So this was the first game that Namco brought out, and it was the first game from the designer of Pac-Man.
Yeah.
So again, from a historical standpoint, it looks great.
Very interesting looking cabinet, isn't it? It's not one I had ever seen before. When you mentioned it, that you were going to go and get that, it's not one I've even seen, let alone there. Got a bit of screen burn on that one, so that's obviously had a long life.
Yes.
And it's a sort of a video pinball style game.
It's a video pinball, distributed by Sega, so it's in a Sega cabinet, although it's a Namco game. And it was obviously for the French market, because it's got French on the control panel. It's got a lot of screen burn on there. It's not something we can do anything about that, is it? Because once the phosphorus, is it? That's
it's just worn away inside, so you've just got that burn over time. There's not a lot you can do. It always comes up when people switch monitors. So if you switched it to Pac-Man, you're going to see that screen burn. If you're actually running GB on it and it's been running on there, it's not going to be too bad. You're going to be a little bit dull, but actually that's probably the best thing you can do is keep on using that machine, that
with
screen
that monitor,
in that monitor.
Totally
So
I've had monitors in the past with screen burn from other games, and there's nothing more annoying.
No, and then just seeing that shadow of Tetris or whatever else you've got on there.
Well, my Skyscraper had versus golf on it for years, and I eventually changed the monitor, but
So I think we'll be fine with that. Just leave it as it is. And if we see any more in the future, you can usually see them when you go to pick up spare monitors and things, whether they've got a little bit of screen burn on there. But tubes do last a very long time. I think that's what people don't realise. The actual tube is going to last a very, very long time, and it's usually the electronics, the chassis that goes wrong, and even that can be swapped out. So if you've got a tube, never throw it away if it works.
But there are some parts on a chassis that are hard to find, like the flyback. Finding replacement. If that goes, we are struggling to keep it going.
You are.
Unless you've got a chassis that's similar.
And a lot of these machines were very similar from the yoke and all that sort of point of view. So you can swap a lot of parts out. So the challenge of keeping CRTs going is going to be a big one for the museum, definitely. But it just has to be done.
We're going to need lots of storage for CRTs.
Yeah, plenty of space.
We've got the Blue Shark, which I picked up fairly recently. I'm really surprised we got this one because it's such a rare game. It's a Taito game, but it's distributed by Midway. It's UK supply. Don't know what's wrong with this. It's not a light gun game.
No.
What are the mechanics of this game, Richard?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I really don't. This one's a real surprise because I do remember seeing it. I even remember seeing the flyers because it's quite iconic with that spear gun, which is our one's in a pretty bad condition, but I think we can do something to restore that, at least get it back to something that people would want to touch, and not be too worried about all that.
It's got a gun like Operation Wolf, so it works the same way as potentiometer, is it?
Operation Wolf is basically a joystick, and I think this one may be working on the same sort of principle, but it seems to just slide along left and right, so it could just have a big wiper that tells it which position it's in. It could just be a resistance that goes along. So we'll open that one and have a look. But again, that's quite an interesting one. I'm quite keen to see. And I can't remember what the screen looks like. So I can't remember what that game actually looks like, which is going to be interesting. So
it's lovely black lit. It's got black light in there again and a lovely backdrop.
Is it colour or is it black?
It's a black and white
It is
monitor.
black. Okay,
But because of the backdrop, it looks like it's in colour. I mean, if you play it on MAME, it looks ridiculous. But once it's in the cabinet, it looks amazing. And of course, again, it's Space Invaders hardware, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get that one going, I think.
No, absolutely. That shouldn't be too difficult at all. So, especially if it's a UK one, so we shouldn't have too many issues with power supplies and everything else. And it's a little bit, what date was that one? Is that?
78.
Okay, so we've moved along, 74, 68. And then I guess we come to Space Invaders.
Space Invaders, which has come out of my collection.
It's the Japanese one, isn't it?
It's the Japanese one.
Okay, that's a really nice machine.
Really nice. I prefer the Japanese one over the Midway version. It doesn't need any work. No. It's all working. It's got the Braze multi-kit in there, so you can play with loads of different games. Fantastic to have that here. And that really sets off the now the classic era, we're moving into the classic era now, because Space Invaders changed everything.
It did.
After the Electromechanical games, all these early black and white games, Space Invaders came along and changed everything, didn't it?
That's it. I do hope people appreciate where we got to with Space Invaders. So all of those early games, a good game's a good game, isn't it? So you know, you're going to have black and white games. You're going to have those early games, but that had to happen to get you to something like Space Invaders, which was really on the cutting edge of technology. I mean, that processor is running so fast that the only reason why it speeds up when you shoot the invaders is because there's more time for them to display on the screen. So that's why they're slow to start with and they speed up at the end. So everything's sort of running as fast as it possibly can. It just turned out that was a really good game mechanic. So yeah, absolutely, yeah, it's really good. So then we've got quite a lot more down the arcade, which we're not going to spend too long on looking at, but we are going to go to Gauntlet 2 at the end, which is another machine that's been on loan to us.
By Adrian, that's got a Gauntlet board in it, but we're going to change that out for Gauntlet 2.
Okay, yeah. So it's a Gauntlet 2 cab, isn't
exactly.
it? So
another very nostalgic game for me. I remember playing this on the Isle of Wight. All 4 of us mates all hanging around this on our holiday from school. Brilliant game.
Absolutely, yeah. I have similar memories. Down in Weston-super-Mare, I was in the Scouts, and it was 1986, and we all just spent the entire day. We were supposed to be at the beach, I don't know, doing something, setting up, whatever. But we spent the whole day in the arcade playing Gauntlet, just bumping in 10p's.
And that's when we put down the pen and paper for Dungeons and Dragons, and then we just started playing the video game version of it because it just come on so well.
And do you like Gauntlet or Gauntlet 2? Which one's your favourite?
Gauntlet 2.
Yeah, it's a bit more polished, isn't it? Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So moving on to this next game then, Richard. Wow.
Yeah, okay.
This is really old. Atari Sprint 2 by Key Games.
Yeah, really interesting story from Key Games. It was Joe Keenan, wasn't it? Yeah. So he was set up as a subsidiary or the spin-off of Atari, really, wasn't it? And this was in early days of Atari.
Early days, because a lot of the operators, it was a 3-tier system then, wasn't it? And a lot of the coin operators would only allow certain companies into their arcade. So to get around that, they created another company, Key Games.
That's it,
to get their games in the arcade. But basically, it's an Atari-made game. Yeah, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I think some of the Key Games, they tweaked a few things, didn't they, to make them slightly different, so they could offer 2 different things to the operators via the distributors, because operators tended to only want to buy from one distributor, didn't they? So if they had all Atari games, they'd just pick an Atari game, whereas if they had an Atari and a Key Games, they basically got double the sales. And I think, if I remember rightly, the Key Games were pretty much instrumental in changing that method of buying, because they made which was the game they made? They made a really successcessful game. And that basically broke that lock on the lock.
It changed the whole setup, didn't it? Yeah.
So after that, I know Key Games were pretty instrumental in actually saving Atari, really, with some of the work they did when the games crash was going on in 1982, that sort of thing. So
So this is another really interesting game. It's Sprint 2, not because it's the second one, it's because it's got two player, right? It's a black and white game. It's got a huge monitor inside.
25 probably.
25 inch.
Probably,
Doesn't seem to be any screen burn I can see on it. What sort of work we're going to need to get involved here, Richard? I mean, it's really dusty.
It's really dusty. It's going to be a 110 volt system, so we're going to have to make sure that we've got a step down power supply and then check out power supply on the board. It uses quite a lot of AC voltages. Then gets regulated on the actual board. The monitor itself, as you say, black and white monitor, but should be in reasonable condition. Might need to check out some of the capacitors and things on there because it's really old. I mean, this is
huge. Some of those capacitors, aren't
some
they?
of them are massive, yeah.
So when you get a replacement capacitor, are they the same size as the old ones, or are they like I can imagine them being a lot smaller? But then how do you get them to fit on the board?
Yeah, sometimes you have to get ones that you can fit. Make sure your wires are not going to short out on anything. It's always a good idea if you've got smaller ones to just stick them down with a bit of silicone adhesive to stop them moving around, that sort of thing as well. So we'll have a good look at that board, check it now. Again, the hardware looks fairly straightforward.
Does it?
It's got a 6502 processor on there, a few other memory devices and things, and everything else is nicely laid out in X and Y coordinates for repair and servicing.
Yeah.
So I think that one's going to be one we can attack quite quickly and see whether we get it up and running.
So
but
it could be one of the first games.
Yeah, real fun game to play though, isn't it? I remember playing that a lot. So I think
we've got a lot of. It's been painted on the sides. We've got a lot of work trying to get that paintwork off, haven't we? I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, there's some artwork underneath that black paint.
It would be really nice to think that there is something under there, and it's a very orangey yellow, striking looking artwork on the side of there. So
amazing artwork. So we've got a lovely Burger Time here. Again, another cab that's been loaned from the community. Our good friend Harry Bolt.
Yep.
In fantastic condition. It's all
really
working, and he's touched up all the artwork. So
I've never seen one looking as good as that. So I think that's going to be really fun to play. It's a great game.
Yeah.
A lot of people have good memories of that. Got some good translations into the computers of the day as well. So I think a lot of people have played that game.
Mr. Wimpy, wasn't it?
It was, I think so. So it's a really good fun game. I expect people really want to play that one, and it is in very, very good condition. So we're very lucky to get that on.
Very lucky. And then we've got a British-made Moon Crest.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bootleg of Moon Crester, basically, isn't it?
Moon Crest.
Extremely heavy cabinet.
It's
Atari heavy, that cabinet. it's all made of wood. There's wood everywhere inside. But that's all working. I don't think we need to do much to that really, other than add a free play option on there, because we don't have that at the moment. But other than that, just a good clean. Yeah,
and a lot of the machines are in good working condition. We've got some jammer machines down the side as well, which you could be able to swap out with jammer PCBs. And then at the very end, one of my favourite games.
One of my favourite games as well. Eugene Jarvis.
Yeah, Robotron. 2084.
Yeah.
So that's got a really good story behind it, but it basically is one of the very, very classic games from the Williams.
It's perfection. For me, it's arcade perfection. It's the game I always go back to.
Yeah. I wish I was better at it. Neil's already proved he's better at it than me.
It's just time. You just need to put the time in, Richard, and it will come. And don't get too greedy.
Yeah, I know. That's it. Yeah, I do get carried away with the moving around, and actually, I've seen other people play it, and they stay a lot stiller than I do. So I need to calm that down a bit. But I'll get better at it. The last time I played it seriously was when I was much younger. So we'll get back to that. But,
so that finishes off. We're going to come back to all these games in another video, but for now that's pretty much it, isn't it? Really, it
is. We've got a lot of work to do. What have we got in here? We got the floor to do next.
We've got the floor to do next. We've got to put a resin floor down here, and then obviously the decorations, which is the fun part. Bring in some more machines in here, because obviously I've got my collection that's got to come here. Sky Skipper, Sheriff, we've got a Super Hang-On.
Wow.
We've got Donkey Kong, Asteroids Deluxe.
Cuba.
Yeah,
okay,
We've got 6 more classic machines to come in here. Yeah. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Right guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. And of course, to all of my new subscribers that have come over to the channel, and people that have asked me to do this Patreon. I do feel a bit funny about asking about it, but it's there, it's set up. If you want to help out, it's there. Other than that, just come down to the museum. We just want to see you here. We'd really appreciate it, wouldn't we, Richard? So until next time, take care, and I'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, I was going to say, poor Neil.
How did that sound, all right?
That sounded great.